Hey there, friends. Dave Paulides. This is a review edition of The Secrets of Skinwalker Ranch, and this is episode 12. Don't be confused. We missed 10 and 11, and I'm going to go back and do them, but I wanted to keep up to date with the most current one that I could. So it's episode 12. And I call this the night the drones fell. And you'll understand why in a second. But first of all, I want to cover something that I think is really important. I had a lot of comments on the past review segments. What are you wasting your time on this stupid show for? This was worthless. It has nothing to do with missing people, blah, 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 blah. One more time. Way back when Mr. Bigelow owned Skinwalker Ranch, he had a team of physicists, scientists on that ranch for many, many, many years. And the head of his investigative team was a man named CanAm Kelleher. CanAm is one of the most brilliant people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. He has a background in biochemistry. He has an investigative thought process. He's the perfect guy to head up the investigations there at the ranch. And then he brought all the players together. He was there for over a decade. And CanAm also sent people all over the United States in search, and Canada, in search of facts supplementing what they knew at the ranch. So about probably 7 or 8 years ago, I got a call from somebody who said, CanAm would like to meet with you. What? Flew to Las Vegas, where he lives, and where Mr. Bigelow also lives. And I met with him. And I felt about that big in a room full of that big people. He told me that he thought our research was related to what was happening at the ranch. And that came from several of the research people at the ranch under Bigelow. And that started a relationship with CanAm. And I ask him for advice all the time. I ask him for direction. I ask him what he'd do under certain situations. One of the things he asked me for was copies of our U.S. missing persons map. And they wanted to look at it, a group of their team, senior team members, and discuss it. Of course, I supplied those. And because they saw something at the ranch that many people thought was Bigfoot, he asked me a lot of questions about Bigfoot, and I asked him a lot of questions. And weirdly, very weirdly, I was up in the middle of nowhere in British Columbia filming. And somebody said, hey, you need to go talk to this old guy. And I walk into this little room in the middle of, way up in the woods of nowhere. And this man said, oh, I know you. You're Dave Paulides. I said, yeah. And he goes, yeah. Bigelow's team was here a couple years ago. You probably know about that. No, I didn't know about that. I later came home and talked to CanAm, and he said, oh yeah, we were up there. So it's interesting that our research paths were following the same line of thought. Now, that's why I am intrigued about Skinwalker Ranch. I do believe that there are some major parallels between their work and my work. So you're going to have to be patient with me, because I'm going to stick with it. I'll make comments about production value, etc., but I'm not going to demean those men at all, because they're on ground that's never been walked before. So let's talk about this episode 12 session. They start the session off and they talk about drilling into the mesa and their prior efforts and how it's failed and how drills have broke. And the same group comes in with a bigger drill rig, a stronger head on the drill. The old rod broke. Their beacon at the head of the rod stopped functioning. And so you've got this drill head going into the mesa, and at the front of the head, there's a beacon that sends messages up to a receiver out here, tells them the progress, what problems, etc. That stopped functioning when they went into the mesa. So they got a new beacon, a new rod, and they start drilling away. And we all know what happened. The rod broke again, the beacon failed, and they're stymied once again. So, just prior to them failing, all the electronics on that drill head failed, including in the cab of the truck that monitors and sends the drill in. So, is it electromagnetic issues in that area that are shutting things down erratically? They asked that question. Now, to me, that was the most boring part of the show. It was only about 10-15 minutes, but they keep hammering away. Now, there is technology out there where you bring in this huge machine and they drill into the side of a mountain and they make a tunnel and they seal the tunnel as they're drilling. It's phenomenal technology. I think maybe they should consider this. It's pretty expensive technology, but if they keep being thwarted on their efforts to drill, I think that's the only solution. So they bring in a company with 1,000 drones. It's a drone-based sky show team. And they talked about that they were going to use this in the area where they monitored and showed this cone-shaped item up to 2,000 feet in the sky near the triangle, above the triangle. And they talked about how last week drones failed to fly. This time, they're going to split the field of drones. And they're going to put 600 drones in the triangle and 400 drones in the east field. Split them up, launch them simultaneously. And the drones are going to fly in a pre-programmed cylindrical formation. Imagine a big water hose going up in the sky. The drones are going to fly in this cylindrical formation around that water hose, but there's no water hose there. And then as they're flying around, Travis is going to shoot a rocket right up through the middle of it to see if he can instigate some kind of activity. I know we're going back to the rockets again. Travis loves them. So they're going to launch this rocket through both formations. At the same time, there's going to be a LiDAR drone flying around this whole area. And they're going to have spectrum analyzers around the entire field that are going to monitor energy spikes. All of the drones are on manual start time, so they don't have to do one individually. And they lay the drones out with their lights on in the field in a rectangular formation. It's pretty impressive. Just as they're ready to launch the drones, it looked like on the backside of the mesa, a bright white light appears, hovers around a little bit. Travis sees it, they get it on video, and then it disappears behind the mesa. Gone. But that was a key to what was going to happen with the drones. They call up Eric in the command center and they say, hey, was this on ADSP? ADSP is the radar systems that monitor air traffic flying through that area to make sure nothing gets hit. And Eric says, no, it wasn't monitored. So it wasn't sending out a signal, probably wasn't an airplane. It didn't look like one to me, it looked like a UFO. So just as they're getting ready to launch the drones, the drone company says 200 drones in the east field are not functioning. And 100 drones in the triangle aren't functioning. Well, we know this happens all the time. Nothing new. Something about this area, whether they're sending a message or whether there's some other outside interference that they don't understand. And then they ask the question, well, as we get closer to launch time, is there some type of electromagnetic or radio pulse that's interfering with the launch mechanisms on the drone? Good questions. So they reconfigured all the drones in the east field to get them working. 600 drones in the triangle are working. And they launch them. And it was pretty impressive. They launch in a pattern going straight up. They stay in that triangle formation. And then suddenly, in the triangle, these drones start falling out of the sky onto the ground. They were probably, I'm going to guess, 30 feet up in the air. First, it's the triangle area. And then these things are falling on the tents where these guys are working. This was dangerous. A drone falling on your head from 30 feet could break your head open easily. So they're hiding, they're trying not to get hit. They've lost all control of these drones, except the ones in the sky. And then, remember, they're going into a pre-programmed cylindrical formation. The east field starts to fly in a cylindrical formation. Now, obviously, a lot of their drones are gone, but they're still flying in this cylindrical formation. And the question at the time was the cone doing this in some way? So Travis wants to launch the rockets. So they run out and they're trying to dodge the drones that are still flying out of the sky. And they get out to the point where they're ready to launch. They launch and it misfires. It doesn't launch. So they order the triangle to fire. It misfires. No, I don't believe that this was something wrong with the rockets or that they were wired incorrectly. No, I think it was outside interference. Well, Travis says they're shutting us down. So they reset one of the rocket launchers, and these cylinder formations were only supposed to fly for a certain amount of time, and then they were going to move off and then come down in a controlled fashion. Well, they had wasted so much time that they started to move, so Travis says, let's launch this rocket right now, even if it flies up the side of the formation. And they launch it. And it fired, and it went. And so as this is the cylindrical formation's going, this rocket comes up the left side of it, and at about 30 feet up, it disappears for 2 seconds. Yeah, it's not anywhere, maybe it's 20 feet from the cylindrical formation. It disappears for like 2 seconds. It reappears, goes up, and Travis said it appeared that it must have hit something and fell out of the sky. But they said that they didn't see it hit anything. Well, that's pretty common. There's a lot of things up there in the sky that they don't see. But for it to hit something, it meant it had to be solid. Drones were on the ground everywhere. The company president came on later and said, they do these all over the country, these formation flying. They've never had anything close to this ever happen. said it only happens at Skinwalker Ranch. So now, really the best part of the show to me is they come back to the control center in a couple days after they've analyzed all their data, and they talk about what they found. So 2 days later, they're in the command center, and they've got the owner of the drone group on video conference. And he said, well, the first thing I have for you guys is something truly amazing, is that when we launched the drones, the GPS read that the drones were way over here, over on the mesa, and he showed on a map where they went. Supposedly they went. They were still flying in that same area, but GPS showed them, and they plotted the drones, and they were at the spot where the team had seen a UAP enter the mesa weeks and weeks ago. And then they saw the same UAP exit the mesa maybe a quarter mile away. So at that entry point, the GPS shows that the drones are over that area. That's weird. And they even commented, that's really odd. So the drones were at about 30 feet when this happened, and the blob that was detected over the triangle was also at 30 feet. And Travis said, that's not lost on me. That's unusual. And that's an important data point. So the rocket that was flying up next to the drones flew up and disappeared near the end point. Now this is odd too. Remember the UAP that entered the mesa, and then they saw it come out. Where it came out, they call that the end point, and that's where the rocket disappeared from sight. Also near the petroglyph. As the rocket is flying up alongside the drones, there's 2 seconds where on video it just disappears, and then it reappears and keeps going. So that's weird. How can that be? Did it pass behind something? Did something stealthily conceal it? There was no answers. But there was also a drone that was being hand flown by this team around the entire area. And they were trying to grab LiDAR data and FLIR data off of it, I think, because it was a bit unclear exactly what the purpose of that drone was. So, as the drone is flying around, the single drone, it's about 30 feet high. It flies around past the swirling drones, and they didn't mention this, but I watched it 4 times and I'm 100% positive. As that drone is flying horizontally past the drones flying vertically, you slowly lose sight of it, and then boom, it's gone. And then a few seconds later, boom, it appears again. So it wasn't as though it immediately went behind something. It's like it almost went behind a cloud formation that got progressively thicker until you couldn't see it. And then it reappeared. Travis asked the pilot of that drone if he saw anything during that time, or was there any indicator that he was losing sight of that drone. He said no. Strange. So there was a lot going on while all these drones were in the sky. Also, in the area of the exit point, they got on camera a UFO coming out of the mesa for maybe 2 to 3 seconds and then immediately going back in. So what was that doing? Did that come out to take a look, didn't like what it saw and went back in? I don't know. But all of this was happening simultaneously to as these drones were flying in a cylinder and falling out of the sky. Travis made a comment. He said, what if we're seeing a doorway for signals to pass through? Doorway, a portal. Eric said that the team believes all homes, points in the mesa, and the triangle, it's appearing as though they're all related. I think it's a pretty safe statement that they have to be all related. Where the UFOs are going in and coming out, the consistent activity from one point on the triangle and one point on the east field, the things that have happened inside of different homesteads, things that have been seen and have happened in the fields outside of the triangle and the east field. I think it'd be foolish not to think that they're all related. And then Eric said that they're looking for a unifying explanation. I like that, a unifying explanation. What could that be? Many people have asked me, Dave, these people that disappear when they're right next to somebody, but the person never has their eyes on them when they disappear. What could that be? Well, of course, that could be a portal, as I explained in Vanished, which you can watch on Amazon. But the peculiarity is that nobody has eyes on the people when they vanish, ever. Remember that point of separation deal that we talk about every week on missing people? This is a little different because there's no point of separation. There's point not seen. In the Skinwalker research, there's points where their test subjects, the rocket, is not seen. How can that be? Is that stealth technology? Is that something in the way of it, blocking it? The drone that was flying horizontal that slowly disappeared? Now, just so you remember, later this summer, I'm going to be at Phenomicon in Vernal, Utah. I'm very privileged. I'm going to be around all those guys from Skinwalker Ranch. They're speaking as well. Vernal has some of the best speakers in the world, in my humble opinion. I'm not including me in that. I'm just a small cog in a big wheel. But when I'm there, I'm going to listen intently, try to learn, see if they talk about anything going on at the ranch. Again, these gentlemen are treading on ground that nobody ever has. And maybe in hindsight, what they do doesn't make sense to you and me. But maybe their minds work in far different and more advanced ways than you and I. That's the review for episode 12. Hold your taters because I'll be coming back soon with reviews of 10 and 11. You're not going to miss anything. Hang in there. Be kind. It's a kindness revolution. Paulides out.